Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for our Policy Rounds webinar. We'll be starting shortly. I'll just give it a little bit of a few minutes or few seconds to let other people join, and then we'll start right away. All right. So hi, everyone, and welcome to today's Policy Rounds webinar with our guest speaker, Gord, Vice President of Sales and Operations for CareLink Advantage and Helpline. So the Policy Round webinar series was created. Goodness, give me a moment. It's not passing on to the next page. All right, I think I'll let it stay on this page today and then just share with you a little bit of information on the Policy Round webinars. So they were created to enhance knowledge translation of aging and technology research through policy-oriented briefing presentation. The webinar will last 30 minutes, beginning with this short presentation, which I'm giving right now, and followed by a 15-minute presentation from our guest speaker and a 10-minute Q&A. So the presentation in this series will focus on the policy implications of research findings. Speakers will discuss the challenges that their research aims to address, what their findings are to date, and what all this means for future policy decision making. So I will not take any further time, and I will just pass it on to our speaker today, Gord. Over to you, Gord.
Thank you, Norma. Thank you, Agewell. Excited to be here today with you about a topic that I'm extremely passionate about. I'm going to just share my screen here. And, Norma, you should be able to see my slide. Is that correct?
Yes, I can see it.
Perfect. Okay, excellent. Thank you very much. And good afternoon to everybody. Welcome to the presentation. Just a very little bit about me, because you didn't come here to listen about myself. So my name is Gord Turner. I've been with CareLink Advantage just shy of 12 years now. We are a privately owned organization of a bigger company called Northern Communications, which we've been around for about 65 years now. So this is kind of our space. Before I get into the actual what does CareLink Advantage do, I wanted to paint a picture of what we all see every day. And that is, you know, we have mom or dad living at home. They have a couple hours of care a day, one in the morning, one in the afternoon, or one in the evening to help him get dressed, take medication, etc. Family is there as often as they can be, and they're generally there in person on the weekends. And the home care does a beautiful job, and hats off to any folks who are joining us in the home care world. They do an exceptional job providing that personal touch, that care and compassion that a technology can't do. So keep this in mind as the theme as we go through the presentation, as to, you know, this is what we see, and this is what we're trying to help out. So in terms of what do we actually do? Well, our two main things are we keep aging folks living at home, aging in place. And we hear time and time again, that's exactly where they want to be. And because we're keeping them at home, we're keeping them aging in place, we're notifying their caregivers in real time of any atypical events, we reduce that caregiver stress and burnout. And it's because of that, we delay their move to long-term care. And as a result of all of that, we're allowed to, we prevent that leveraging, we allow for that leveraging of resources, and which helps the taxpayers and helps the health authorities. The evolution of CareLink Advantage is really one out of love, as opposed to someone sitting around a boardroom table writing out a business plan. The owner's son, mom had dementia, and the conversation would always come up about, having mom come and live with the son, and she really would have nothing to do with that. Tears and things would always ensue whenever that conversation comes up. And I'm sure this is something that sort of resonates with everybody here. And John's technology and his background in alarm systems and security, every time there was a new situation, medication issues or wandering or eating, a new notification was put together to assist with trying to keep mom at home safely. And so really, that's the evolution of how CareLink Advantage came about. And it's because of that, it led into a number of successful pilots across Canada. And now we're funded by multiple provinces in Canada who pay for our service. They've added CareLink Advantage to their basket of services. In terms of what other evidence exists for CareLink Advantage since then, what have we done since then? Just a few things that I've picked for our presentation, just to mention. As part of a home first strategy in New Brunswick, CareLink, there was 3 pillars. CareLink Advantage was named as one of those one of the pillars, as expanding the use of CareLink Advantage in that province. So they're really pioneered, having CareLink Advantage and having the technology put in homes to keep their loved ones aging in place. We completed this CCTI, or the Continuing Care Technology Pilot Project. That was in Alberta. That was a number of years ago. And then we also wrapped up last year randomized placebo-controlled study, multi-province, comparing usual care versus usual care plus technology. And so we haven't seen the results, but that has been wrapped up. I mean, and I guess at the end of the day, in order to be funded by provinces, you really need to demonstrate a real savings to those health authorities for them to even take a look at you. In terms of designing the system, there was 2 overriding guiding principles that we wanted to follow, and that was, the system had to be passive in nature. What I mean by that is there couldn't be any bells to press or buttons or check-ins by mom, because at the end of the day, that would get forgotten. It wouldn't happen. So the system works around mom and dad. There is nothing for them to do, so they continue to live their life as they are now. From a caregiver perspective, we talk about this exception-based reporting, and we recognize the fact that caregivers are busy. They have their own family that they're taking care of. They can't be checking their phones constantly, looking at, is mom okay? So we set up a series of alerts to alert family members and caregivers if there's an atypical event. And pardon the cliche, but really with CareLink Advantage, no news is really good news. So if there was like a fall, something like that, yes, there's medical buttons, but the falls where patients or clients would not wear the button, the system would generate an alert and reach out to the caregiver. In terms of how does CareLink Advantage work? We use a series of wireless sensors throughout the house, door contacts, motion sensors for activities of daily living, nighttime fall detection, bed sensor. It's a non-wearable, detects when someone's out of bed and will alert them. We also have life safety devices that we can install. water sensors, number of clients have used that. Medication stand for just alerting family members if medication hasn't been taken on time. It all communicates cellularly and then to any one of these devices. So you could be anywhere, you're connected to the internet, you could be overseas, you could still be checking in and be alerted if there's a notification, an atypical event. In terms of video, we offer multiple types of video cameras for taking recordings of what's the situation, or just checking in to see how mom and dad are doing. Again, the exception here is that internet is required at the installation premise for the video to work. If you don't have video, then high-speed internet is not required. And again, there's a customized app so you can see the video on any of these devices. So as I said, I've been with the organization for 12 years, and every time I talk to a case manager or I talk to someone, another healthcare professional, they'll say, well, so what has changed with CareLink Advantage? And every time I just say, well, you know what, we've seen increase in video quality and apps and connectivity. But one thing that I don't ever see a change in is the 4 biggest concerns that families see. So I'm going to take a few minutes and just chat about what those 4 biggest concerns are and how we address them. The one main thing that's going to put someone in long-term care prematurely is wandering. And I just got off the phone with a client yesterday whose mom was brought home by the police at 2 in the morning because she was caught wandering. It's the first time she's ever done it. So now we're going to install CareLink Advantage. We're going to put the door sensors on all the doors, and then we're also going to provide a chime so that they can hear hear it in real time when that door opens up. In terms of how does that work? Well, what I've done is, in the interest of time, I've taken an animation off of our website, and essentially how the Safe Inside notification works is we would name the notification, we would pick the sensor, and because the family only wants to know during the following times, we would pick 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. They don't want to know throughout the day. We would pick who is going to receive that notification, and then they would receive it. So the notification reads is that if the door opens up between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m., reach out to myself on my phone, send me a text, and also send me a phone call. In terms of nighttime fall detection, the concept is the same. We would put in a sensor that goes underneath the mattress. It's called an adaptive bed sensor. So as soon as they're out of bed, we would have a delay in the time, and if they don't return to bed after a few minutes, then we would let the caregivers know. And I put this up, and I don't typically, read testimonials, but I put this up because this is a true testimonial, unsolicited, came in from a caregiver, and that is the bed sensor detected a urinary tract infection. And mom noticed a big change in her, the daughter noted a big change in mom's behavior and caught on to that, saw the history in CareLink Advantage, took mom to the physician and primary care physician and found out that there was a urinary tract infection. And that spoke to why she was sort of irritable and, and tired. In terms of daytime fall detection, it's the same concept. If there's no activity recorded by any of the sensors for a certain period of time, we're going to let mom and dad, we're going to let the caregivers know. Medication compliance, we have what's called a medication stand. And if you've got multiple medication periods throughout the day, then what we would do is we would set up an alert to say, you know what, mom hasn't taken her medication by 9 a.m., let me know. So then the caregiver would follow up. I thought it be fitting to use a quote from a famous author, both a Pulitzer and Nobel Prize winner, and for her biographical writing. And basically, is if you want to understand today, you have to search yesterday. And what I mean by that is with CareLink Advantage, you have the ability to look at the last 60 days of history. This is a minute by minute in reverse chronological order of all the sensors. But if we wanted to hone in on a specific sensor, I've picked the garage door contact. We could look at what's happening on that sensor. And again, we put sensors in bathrooms so we could pick up an atypical event such as mom going to the bathroom 5 times a night, which would be, out of the ordinary and may be telling of a UTI. And again, as a busy caregiver, if you only had a few minutes a day, you would take a look at this, the current 24-hour wellness screen available online or on the app, and you could see what's happening. Yep, mom's had a good day, had a great solid night's sleep, got up a little bit earlier than normal, good activity with the doors. Everyone has been there. It looks like she either went out, in this case she did, or maybe she's having a nap. So this is a great screen if you only have a few minutes today. And from a caregiver perspective, it's like, okay, I can breathe a sigh of relief because I know mom had a good day. She had a traditional day. She was up and about. If you want to add video, no problem. We have multiple types of cameras, as I pointed out earlier. They can look inside, they can look outside. We can set up what's called an event-triggered recording to let people know what happened before a door opened up and while the door was opened. You could look again outside for a clearer view. And if you want to look at your loved one, in this case, my wife's dog, you could definitely do that and make sure that everyone is well and fine. And so if you got a notification and the first instinct was for you to call mom or dad and they didn't answer the phone, then the wheels might start spinning and say, okay, do I go over there? Do I send the neighbor over? But if you had the video, you could look to see, oh, you know what? Mom's just lying on the couch, having a nap, or she did have a fall, and now I need to send emergency services. So the video plays a very powerful role in determining, how mom and dad are doing. With CareLink Advantage, we talk about the fact that we have the home care in there a couple hours a day, and they do a wonderful job of that personal touch, that compassion that technology can't provide. CareLink Advantage addresses those 4 concerns that I chatted about. And it's not necessarily the 2 hours that the home care is there, it's the other 22 hours a day that they're really concerned about mom and dad. And so on its own, CareLink Advantage certainly can't address, the meals and the medication if there's, personal care workers are required for medication. But when you combine the services, you really have a really solid care plan for mom and dad, really beneficial. And again, it helps the health authorities, it helps leverage resources in other situations. In terms of most commonly asked questions, that I know I'm getting down on my time here, so I'll be brief, and certainly I'll have my contact information. You're welcome to reach out to me. From an installation premise, no handheld technology is required. Phone line if they want a life safety device, internet if they want to have video. They don't require a computer, of course. From a caregiver perspective, a phone is important, yes, for sending out those notifications. Cell phone with the data plan is even better because then they can get it in real time. Pricing, it's all based on the amount of sensors that we have in the house, and all systems are rented. No long-term contract and no cancellation fees because we realize things change rapidly. So just to wrap up in terms of how do we address the 4 stakeholders? I mean, again, from the seniors' perspective, we provide that ability to age in place, and that's really where they want to be. From a caregiver perspective, one thing I haven't mentioned out is that the ability to have other caregivers who don't live in town now be involved in the care for their mom or dad. But the other thing too that we often hear from family members, from the actual client, the end user, is that when mom or dad are on the phone with their son and their daughter, it's not an interrogation. Oh, mom, did you take your medication? Mom, did you have something to eat? those interrogations are gone because CareLink Advantage provides that information. So they know that they've been up, they've had their medication, they've been into the fridge and had their breakfast. So it turns more into a conversation. That's really nice for the client. From the social worker perspective, they now have a happy client or a happier client and a caregiver that's less burnt out. And from what we've heard from social worker colleagues is that, less firefighting is required because the caregivers are happy. So it's a win-win on everybody's part. From a taxpayer perspective, I believe I've demonstrated the fact that with, now reducing and delaying that move to long-term care, there's an opportunity for cost avoidance and cost savings. Few words from others. One thing I want to share is that, we really have shown, and we always receive phone calls about, just spoke with a client this morning out in New Brunswick. Great, system was great. It allowed mom to stay in her home several more years. Or in some cases, it's only 2 or 3 months, but it's more time at home, and it really makes the caregiver happy that they could provide that opportunity for mom or dad to live at the home. And I put this up just to remind us all that there really isn't a one size fits all for healthcare. We really need to be open-minded about, what's available, what technology is available, and adding that to the care plan to make sure that we can keep our loved ones living at home and aging in place. So I'll stop there. I don't know how I am for time. It shows 1:25 on my screen. So, and again, I'm very happy to jump on the phone and chat about CareLink Advantage. I usually do this presentation in 40 minutes so I really had to be brief, and feel free to reach out to me directly, and I'd be happy to take more time and do a demo for you. So I'll stop there. Norma, I'll turn that over to you and open up the floor for questions.
Thank you so much, Gord. You were really good for time. I know it was a very long presentation, but you were well paced. I thought you were going to rush through it, but it was amazing. I'm happy to hear like all the information I've heard about CareLink Advantage. Like it is like the distance disappearing. That is amazing, and like the combined services of caregivers and CareLink working together to make sure that all the adults stay at home and age in place for as long as they can. I find that amazing. I just had a quick question to start, and I will let everyone know that if you want to ask anything, please just write in the Q&A. So I was wondering, Gord, from the work you have done, what have been some of the challenges that seniors have reported to have with the technology?
From a caregiver perspective, or from the actual end user?
Maybe both, like from the seniors themselves and from the caregiver perspective.
From the seniors, what the biggest thing is just making sure that they know that about privacy concerns. And what I think 7-8 years ago, privacy was more of an important. It's still an important topic, but it was more in the news, and we always reassure the clients that only the caregiver has access to this information. CareLink Advantage doesn't have a wall of TVs looking in on our families. When I show you my system, when I show you a demo, it's my system at home. So from a senior's perspective, it's just making sure that they know. That's always been the biggest challenge that we had. And really, I wouldn't even classify it as a challenge, but just making sure we're upfront about that. From a caregiver perspective, just making sure that they are knowledgeable about how the system works. We always work with them about the notifications. And if they call us and saying, I'm getting tons and tons of notifications, it's either I've done a poor job in setting up the notifications with them, or the system is really telling them that there is there is a situation at home that needs to be further looked at. And I'll be honest, I mean, we've had situations where systems have only been installed 2 or 3 nights because CareLink has identified that they're not safe at home at all, period. They're wandering all the time. And in that case, I mean, CareLink Advantage has done its job. We're sad that they didn't have it for longer, but deep down, we're really happy that it's identified that they're not safe at home. So I would say those would be the 2 biggest challenges that I've encountered.
Okay, dokie. So one of the our attendees, Stephanie Tan, has asked, in what provinces is CareLink fully funded?
Right, great question. And I was prepared for this one. So of course, New Brunswick, we work with the Department of Social Development. They add it to their basket of services. And then out in BC for Island Health, they also cover CareLink Advantage. We're part of their basket of services. And we continue to work with other provinces. And unfortunately, and I hate to use the word COVID, I'm sure everybody is COVIDed out. But that really did slow us down in terms of, progressing our work forward for other provinces. But I can assure you we are working with other provinces to show them the benefits of CareLink Advantage. And I mean, everyone has seen the Canadian census data. Everyone has seen the dementia report that was put out last year. There's going to be a real need for technology coming up because there's going to be a lot of folks who the over 85 is the numbers are staggering. And there just simply is not enough long-term care beds for them. So technology absolutely has to play a part. So thank you for the question, Stephanie.
That's so true. Technology is the way forward to help. We have an anonymous attendee who has asked, does someone help the senior with the installation of the rented components? Absolutely.
That's a very good question. So as I said, I'm out in Sudbury. We have a lot of clients who are not nearby, and we have a professional installer. So it would first start off as we would have a phone call conversation. Sometimes the family would like to do a demo, not a problem. Other times they're ready to go. We would customize the system, how many doors, motions, bed sensors, etc. Professional installer would go out. Their role is to install the system, and it's already been pre-tested before they actually go out to minimize the time on site. And then once it's installed, I'm on the phone with the caregiver to make sure they have the app downloaded. We have a look at the history. We set up the notifications. And then about a week later, we're going to jump online. We're going to look at that history that I showed you in the presentation and say, geez, here's mom's pattern. Mom typically gets out of bed for 15, 20 minutes between 10 and 6. So why don't we set up a bed sensor notification for 30 minutes? We're going to give mom 10 minutes extra grace time. And then we're going to send you the alert. So we have a very regimented process because we want to make sure, Norma, we're not sending you 10 notifications in the first night because you're going to throw the system out. So we're very careful as to what we do. The door notifications are straightforward, but it's things like up and about and the bed sensor are important to get right. So that's how, and we're always available. We offer 24/7 service for if you have any issues with the system. I hope that answered your question. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gord. I think it does. So we have come to our 30 minutes end point. I just want to thank you so much for your presentation today and any of our attendees. And thank you so much, attendees, for attending. And feel free to reach out to Gord if you have need or if you have questions or if you need something answered. Thank you so much, Gord.
Thank you very much for the opportunity, Norma. And we look forward to hearing from anyone who'd like to discuss this further.